All right, hey guys, and welcome to two. That's two. We've done
Two.
this a million times now. I feel like it's not fun anymore. That's two
That's our
Dynamite
thing.
dudes with attitudes. Hello, I'm your host this week. My name is Marcus D'Angelo, not of WrestleZone.com, and I'm joined by Dominic D'Angelo, my degenerate brother, wearing
Whoa.
a Hulk Hogan-esque do rag right now.
Can it be
Brother,
more? I want to go like more Conan route. Can that be work all right?
so you're feeling K-Dog right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Rowdy,
anyways,
rowdy, and bowdy, bowdy.
his name, that was terrible. His name is Dominic D'Angelo. And yes, a journalist with WrestleZone.com.
Now
Dominic,
I thought you were the degenerate brother, and I'm the slapdick brother.
well, it's whoever's not hosting, I think, is the degenerate, but you are a slapdick. So it's I thank you for pointing that out
Self-admitted.
to our listeners. Yes, Dominic, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Big week for AEW. We got the go home show, and then Full Gear happening on Saturday, and the card, Marcus, is pretty darn stacked. Um, by the way, you have the lineup of the Dynamite results this week. Do you? You probably don't have Full Gear card set up, or do you?
I do not. I do not. I mean, off the
I will
top.
pull that up on my phone, but
Okay. Well, I mean, off the top of my head, there's some great matches, Dom. And AEW is the match I'm most excited for is Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley for the championship. Obviously, that's the biggest match on the card. AEW is really hyping Eddie Kingston. They're releasing like videos about him and like his rise and stuff. I think one. Um,
oh,
I feel like there's two parts of it. I saw it on Twitter on his Twitter. So go check out Eddie Kingston on Twitter under what is it like Mad King something like
Mad
that.
King 1981 or something like that.
Something like that. You'll go find him, and yeah, he's great. And Dom, the fact that AEW is pouring a little money into Kingston, and really kind of starting to hype him for this match, I'm starting to wonder: is Kingston going to pull out the upset?
Man, um, I think he could because I don't know if we want to talk about this right now,
We
but
can talk about, hey, this is
um,
our show, Dom. We can talk about whatever the hell we want.
I guess you're right. I guess you're right. But none other than whiskey drinking Hangman Page kind of lacking a little bit of confidence
Ooh.
this and during an interview. Now, if he were to go in there with nerves and to lose the match, maybe wouldn't that kind of define him down as a character? And if he were to kind of persevere through those fears and concerns, he would be elevated. So if you look at it from that aspect, maybe Hangman's gonna win, and maybe Kingston wins the title for Moxley, setting up a babyface versus heel straight up match with Kingston and Hangman Page.
Well, and let me tell you, that would be a program that I would love to see take
Right.
place. Even though they have routinely buried Adam Page on the program, I still recognize him as a talent. And so that's something I would like to see.
Yeah, and you know what? I think with as regards to him being buried, I don't think this was necessarily the case this week with it and how they handled it.
Yeah, did you
Um,
not see my Twitter, my live Twitter during the
did I?
during
I
Dynamite?
retweeted one of your things. I think it was more about the Young Bucks than it was about
Yeah,
anything else.
maybe you didn't see what I had to say about the JR and Page segment, but
No. Well, you're the host, so you lead the way here. What's going on?
well, you know what? We'll get to JR and Page. Let's talk about the best part of AEW Dynamite right out of the gate. What really blew me away, the segment between Kingston and Moxley. That was not just, and this is what you retweeted, Dom. That was not just like the best segment of the night. That to me was one of the best moments in AEW history. Those guys were on fire. Eddie Kingston, verified superstar now in my book. That stuff in ring where he can't put his hands on Moxley and Mox was like behind him and he was kind of like telling him what it is. Kingston kind of feeling all these emotions about like, he sacrificed a family basically to chase this dream. It's like, man, the stakes are high and it's exciting. Kingston, like he was showing up with like some real venom, especially toward the end of that. Like I'm taking that from you. That belt is mine. Like it was very
Didn't he
intense.
say I'm gonna gut you? Didn't he
Yes.
say that?
Yeah, he was saying, I'm
Yeah.
gonna gut you. It's like he's saying that his fist is more powerful than any move in wrestling, and it's just like, man, I'm like pumped up about the match. I'm genuinely excited about a wrestling match for the first time in a very long time. Um, yeah, it's gonna be something else.
Marcus, I don't think it's hyperbole too when you say it's one of the best moments in AEW history. I think it really is.
Yes.
It's what like the wrestling product over the course. WWE's been having its iron fist for years on end now, nearly 20 years at this point. And we've all, if you watch WWE throughout the course of time, we've kind of been. It's kind of got everything's getting leveled out. It's all that same vibe, septic, corporate, agenda driven, history, revisionist history esque vibe that WWE gives off, and really taken away from the intrigue of wrestling that you want to see. You have to really dig back into clips of watching on the network of old WWF or other promotions that portrayed this type of wrestling ideal to get that kind of intensity and stuff that we received with Moxley and Kingston this past week, or
Yes.
yesterday, as a matter of fact. And yeah, the fact that Kingston laid it out, being like, I'm gonna give this belt to my mother and tell her this is why you don't have a son. This is why you don't have a daughter-in-law, is because of this stuff.
Yep.
And it's just fucking amazing. Like a really, really well laid it out. And then I'm like, we talked about too how like Kingston last week we talked how Kingston's promo was both promos but last week between with Mox both good, but Kingston's was better. And I'm like, how is Mox going to get to that level in this segment? And that line he gave at the end, where he's like, "You made a promise to your mother that you can't keep," was
Yeah.
awesome. And I
Oh,
was like, "Bam, totally sold." And
and honestly, it gave me those vibes. I've been in bars and I've been in situations like the gym and stuff like that where like guys are getting very very heated, and you're like, this is going to turn into a fist fight. All somebody has to do is say one wrong thing and a fight is going to break out. And it had that vibe. Like it felt like that where when he said that thing about Kingston's mother at the end, I was like, this is the part where if this is a shoot and like this is at the gym or wherever else, like this dude is turning around and blasting him in the face for saying that.
yeah,
So it was really exciting. And you know what's cool? What else was cool about Eddie Kingston's promo is I think it is a half shoot where it's like he sacrificed his life for professional wrestling, and he pissed around in the indies for years. He was in Shikara. He did like all this stuff, like low level, probably low pay, like certainly hasn't made, probably six figures in a year, I would guess, over the course of his career, just struggled, at probably like, I would say probably his best year. If I was to guess, I would guess his best year in wrestling was probably like 80 grand, something like that. So this is a guy who's like fought and scraped and struggled. And now here he finds himself kind of at the precipice of like, okay, all of that, everything I've done in my life has led up to this moment. And I don't want to drop the ball. And so it halfway makes him a baby face, even though he's very clearly positioned as the heel, but 100% makes him the most interesting person in pro wrestling today.
yeah. Oh man, awesome segment. Like, the biggest takeaway, and when you want a go home show, that's what you want on a go home show.
Yep.
Is that you can't ask for anything better than that.
Yep, they're selling tickets to that pay-per-view. I think I told you, I was like, how much does this thing cost? And you told me, I
Yeah.
was like, that's too much. But that's just because I just had a baby,
Yeah.
honestly, I would love to buy that pay-per-view and be able to sit down on my couch and watch this thing take place because man, that is gonna be something else.
Yeah.
And you touched on it before, Dom. It's what's been missing in wrestling since the days when you and I got into it, where it's like it's a personal issue between two guys, and aggression, venom between these two people, where you're just like, man, like if I know that if I was a kid right now, you and I talked about this yesterday actually, 1998, I started really liking Kevin Nash during his feud with the Giant, where I was like, everything else on this program is it's wrestling, so it's all scripted. But what's going on between those two, like that's for real. Those guys hate each other. I truly believed at that age, I was only 11, but at that age, I believed that those two legitimately hated each other in real life. And now, Dom, I know that if I was 11 years old now, I'd be watching this like those guys hate each other. Like this is going to be an actual fist fight on pay-per-view. So, man, stakes are high. And yeah, this is what pro wrestling has been missing. And AEW, I think, has hit a vein of gold with this one.
Yeah, yeah, and like, honestly, however the outcome in, whoever's the winner or the loser, I don't think it's like whatever choice they make is not really a wrong option.
No.
You can create a program or continue a program, depending on who you choose, and I think you can flourish with either one of them. And the loser will not be affected negatively by whatever happens either. I mean, obviously, from a storyline standpoint, you will lose the title shot and lose your chance at that. But like from furthering a stellar storytelling and furthering a star in either way, it won't disrupt anything, I don't think.
Absolutely. And, Dom, this is a good transition to the second best part of AEW Dynamite. It's funny, the best two parts of AEW Dynamite, neither of them were matches. The second best part of Dynamite, in my opinion, was Pac addressing
Oh, okay.
Dom, like, so I'm expecting, like, okay, now we're being joined by Pac and like a little bit of back and forth over like Zoom
via
or
satellite.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. That old wrestling shit. But so what they did instead was like a vignette, and it's like they played this card perfectly, which is like this man has been away from wrestling because of COVID. He's been in isolation because of COVID, and they're starting to play it like he's losing his fucking mind when he's by himself over there.
Yeah.
And like just the cinematography of it, the way that he himself is acting and talking about isolation, it's like, dude, nailed it, absolutely nailed it. And I'm psyched for Pac to get, like, before I didn't really care that much about Pac. I was like, he's a good wrestler, great body, I was like, okay, he's good. Now I'm like, I can't wait to see this guy get back and see how he behaves. Like, he's like, theoretically this is going to be like a vicious little Tasmanian devil out there ripping through people. And so like I absolutely nailed it. So yeah, I was psyched about that.
I don't want to say like a heavily needed star in the mix, but a very perfect to have in the mix at this point in time that we haven't seen Pac. Yeah, you're right. So it's like,
right.
And how you pitch.
Give me an extended feud between him and Cody when Pac returns. I want to see a long-term extended feud, 6 to 8 months, as I always say.
Something very extended. I'm with you on that. No, it was a good little vignette that they did, and
vignette.
Whatever. Vignette, visionary.
Potato.
This was a problem in our last podcast that we did too.
It was also, Dom, ever since we've been kids, and you still do it sometimes, when we're talking about a roster, you say a rouster, and I just want to slap the shit out of you.
It's a real thrill when I do that in interviews with professionals.
Oh my goodness, Dom. Get your shit together. You're a journalist. What were you gonna say?
I just it was a good moment, and I got you excited for Pac to get back in the mix. So, yeah. Again, it speaks to what a go home show should be, where they don't give you like matches that are already like, oh, okay. I mean, they had some of this, but it would be like, having every match like be a tag match with two separate feuds going on. Like, okay, let's pair. Eddie Kingston's gonna team with, which is weird, but Eddie Kingston will pair with Darby Allin against Cody Rhodes and Jon Moxley against Jon Moxley, like doing some shit like that. Where it's like stuff we've seen all the time and stuff WWE goes to the well with all the time too. So it's like,
right. Yeah. Let's get these guys in the ring with each other a little bit leading up to the pay-per-view, but mostly it's just going to be like odd man out every time.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. And no, yeah, they did this the right way this time around. They didn't have to do a contract signing. with Kingston and Moxley. They didn't have to do any of that stupid cliche shit. They just said like, "Hey, you're in the ring, and you
Don't touch each other.
right,
Yeah.
right." But was it Moxley couldn't touch him or
No,
not?
both. That's why
Okay,
Eddie didn't hit him, because like if they either of them touched each other, the match would be off or there'd be disqualification or whatever.
I got you. Well, that's good stuff. That's very
Yeah.
good stuff. And yeah, great, great two segments there. Next best segment or part of the show, in my opinion, would be Cody and the Gun Club against the Dark Order. I'll tell you what, man, John Silver's really growing on me. He's like just this little guy with these enormous muscles, and it's very interesting. And yeah, just getting to see Cody Rhodes tagging with Billy and his son, I thought was really cool. I love that Austin Gunn got the pinfall at the
Me
end.
too. Yeah.
'Cause I've been looking at him and I'm like, how come they're not using this guy? Like he's got a ton of charisma. Like he's always at ringside and he's like just over the top, like he's super pumped up to be at Dynamite every time. He's in great shape. He's a good looking kid. I'm like, why aren't they doing anything with this guy? He's second generation. What's going on here? So I was glad to see that he got to get the win. And yeah, I mean it was a good match. I'm not typically into six mans or schmaz matches, but I thought they did fine with this one. And yeah, like a lot of talent out there. And also, Orange Cassidy came out and set up his thing with John Silver, and I thought that was fine. And before I continue, go ahead. What did you think of that, Tom?
No, I liked it. I'm just with you on the same page with all of that pretty much. Yeah, I thought it was great that Austin Gunn got the pinfall and was like, they didn't overplay it, but they made it like it's something that happened and something that closed out the show and like people make note of like when that happens. And it was interesting too that they mentioned, I mean, they're dark matches, AEW dark matches, but they noted that the Gun Club is 9-0 in tag team wrestling. Like,
Yep.
so it's like you have that in the mix, and plus just having a presence. I've loved Billy Gunn since I was like in high school, and like my favorite gimmick of his that was panned heavily was the one Billy Gunn. I love that gimmick, and I thought like him going from him having that trajectory of, you think back from like '93 for the Smoking Guns, and then just his trajectory of a career is just very impressive. And understated too in a lot of ways, but like he's able to do stuff still. He still looks like like $1,000,000 and stuff in the ring, like from a physical standpoint. So it's just like having those elements in there. And yeah, John Silver is a pretty good star. Like, and
He's just interesting.
it,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
interesting, and like
he draws your eye when he's on screen.
yeah, and you don't always get that from people. Like you really don't. And especially like a wrestler of his stature, it's a little bit of an adjustment. But like, and you know what? JR does a hell of a job at getting him over. Like, from how he describes him, like a ball of muscle and just energetic and all that kind of stuff, really helps define who a talent is there. And, it speaks to JR's talent and ability to do that still. And also just like, yeah, getting new stars over and stars making the most of their moments. That's the other thing too. So,
Well, Dom, I thought you touched on something interesting as well. Billy and his son Austin are undefeated as a tag team, and so you've got Billy, and you can make the argument that he's one of the greatest tag team wrestlers ever. Easily, you can make that argument. I don't know how many he held with the Smoking Guns, but I know that as multiple tag teams, New Age Outlaws, Chuck and Billy, he's had numerous championships over the course of his lifetime. So like he's been a very, very successful tag team wrestler. And again, to me, this is another easy storyline in that FTR, in my opinion, should go over against the Bucks, and then following that, I would love to see FTR and the Gun Club in a feud.
yeah.
Because you've got a viable storyline there. It's this classic tag team wrestler who's been everywhere, done everything, and seen everything, and his son, who's an up and comer, coming up against the guys that are supposed to be the best two in the world now. So to me, that's a natural storyline. It's something that I would love to watch play out. So I hope that they take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I think it's something I maybe would not do it like right after, this feud or something, but I would build to it. Like I would
Sure.
Yeah, you create a program, you further define Austin Gunn as a persona and a star of who he is, and then go from there. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I definitely not against that at all. So
No doubt about it. I hope they make it happen. Something that they should have made happen, Dominic, was a segment that I think could have been really great, but it wasn't. I thought it was a pretty good match, but just the hype surrounding it was not so great. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It's Miro and Trent. So like again, another natural storyline is that FCW. Trent said that Miro was like his young boy there, which is like his apprentice, like his
yeah,
friend who's learning from him and breaking into the business, which I believe is a shoot. I think that they roomed together and stuff, so they were tight. So to me, that's a natural storyline where it's like, Trent, it's you abandoned me or whatever, or Miro, you went on and achieved greater success than I could. Whatever the storyline may be, it's a pretty easy, natural one. Not you broke my fucking toy. Uh, so like, I don't know. I feel like they dropped the ball on it. The match was fine. You've got a couple experienced guys out there in the ring. I was
and it
just
speaks
annoyed.
that part, the experience part speaks to it too, because Trent slipped at the end of that match, and like what you said earlier about Miro when he had that tag match weeks ago was like he's smart on how to handle stuff in the ring, and he made that adjustment and like picked up on it immediately and just kicked Trent instead of like oh gosh, what do I do now that a botch happened or something like that.
I notice a lot of what happens in the ring, and I still don't know if that was an intentional spot or not, because that was like the finish. That wound up being the finish there.
That was
It
the
was
finish.
like,
Yeah. So I was hearing Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer on their radio show and talking about like how Meltzer, I think it was Meltzer, he said that he saw uh, Miro setting up for his kick while Trent was getting ready to go off the top rope,
oh, so
to
he was going to hit him with it in midair, I
in
guess.
midair.
Oh,
Yeah, and then he called the audible like quickly and just kicked him instead and luckily like Trent's wary enough of himself in the ring to like adjust. He didn't get hurt luckily, and they made the adjustments, and so it worked out that way.
and it was a natural storyline moment too, where it's like, man, Trent might have had him, but he slipped, he screwed up, and Miro
Sure. Yeah.
took advantage of it. So like it worked out fine. They again, good match.
And
Just
here's the thing too. Miro looks like a star. He looks like a star. And it's like, he handles himself in the ring like a star. But the whole schmaz bullshit with the video game is dumb. It's just not good. It doesn't fit.
Yep, and also get the damn mic out of his hand. He's not good on the mic yet. I think he has possibility to be good on the mic, but there's a reason why Lana was speaking for him. And then that other guy, what's his name, came out and was speaking for him in the WWE. Skinny guy with like the operatic type voice. I can't remember his name.
In English.
Yes, yes. So like there's reason why these people who are better at talking had the mic. He's not good on the mic. They need to give him a mouthpiece. He's a guy who would benefit greatly from having a legend or somebody come in and just speak for him. No more mic for Miro, in my opinion.
No more mic for you.
No more mic. You break my shit. So yeah, I don't want to see him with a mic anymore. I did think it was interesting though, because Orange Cassidy is like kind of like the hot thing, that they are very clearly setting up a feud between Orange and Miro. Because again, I love Miro. I think he's great in the ring. I think he's got a great look. Don't let him talk and include him in better storylines, and you got a star. So yeah, it's hopefully they're going to turn this bull with him. And Orange Cassidy probably they won't. But I'm trying to remain optimistic.
Well, something that I don't know, you might not have this on your agenda here, but the Taz coming out with Brian Cage and Ricky Starks.
Yes, I'll tell you, that
Yeah.
was a great part of the show too, Dom.
What?
That was a great part of the show too, and actually
Yeah.
that's probably the third best part instead of the Gun Club. So again, that's three segments. That's not actually,
Non-wrestling segment
yeah,
too.
non-wrestling matches. But
But
yeah, no, I thought it was great. Taz came off great. He came off genuine. Taz comes off as like a no nonsense, like here's what's going on backstage, and I think it's bullshit type of guy. And then he's got Brian Cage out there looking like $1 million, and Ricky Starks, who in his own right is wonderful on the mic. So
Yeah.
yeah, those guys are fun and it's compelling every week. And by the way, they're not just dropping the storyline, which like very WCW-esque to like say like, hey Willie Hobbs, we want you to join. We'll give you some time to answer, and
Yeah.
then
Clock's ticking.
and
Clock's
then they just ignore it.
ticking.
That was some classic WCW stuff. But no, this time around, Dom, they wound up actually acknowledging it as he came out to the ring, and then he launched into his stuff about what's going on, and he made some really good points about like the ranking system and where these guys are, and it's like, yeah, they probably should be getting better shots.
Yeah, right. And then I'm curious how they're gonna position them at Full Gear. I want to think that maybe they're gonna somehow get involved with Darby and Cody, but I'm not sure. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Because I want to see the feud between Starks and Darby continue on, but I don't, maybe that's where they're going next. Is like Starks is going to come out, or Starks and Cage are going to come out, and maybe Cage will mess with Cody while Starks messes with Darby. I guess we'll see how that plays out.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. It's intriguing. Yeah, thought that was a good segment. So yeah, but what do you got next?
Only a couple more things to address on my end, and then we can wrap this thing up, man. But what happened between Sean Spears and Scorpio Sky? I thought they were supposed to have a match.
So Scorpio Sky got in contact. Uh, I don't think he has COVID, but there was like a COVID situation, so that's why that was
Oh,
not on the
okay.
card. So that's exactly what happened there.
Are they
So
pushing it to full gear?
no, because I mean, if it's a COVID situation, it's going to be at least 14, 10 days or whatever. So it's like we're going to have to wait for a little bit to follow up with that, I guess. So that's
Well,
the situation there.
it kind of stinks because Sean Spears to me is a guy who's got a lot of potential and has been underused. So I was hoping to see him in action. So I was a little bit disappointed there. Um, Nyla Rose and what was, I guess, clearly a jobber match. What was the name of the woman she was against?
Red Velvet.
Yeah.
Red.
So
Yeah.
kind of an enhancement match. I don't know. It lasted a fair amount of time, and Nyla shined. I thought that Vicky Guerrero really shined.
Yeah.
And actually, my wife was there for that, and she was like, "That's Vicky Guerrero." Like, this is a casual fan. She knows who
Yeah.
Vicky Guerrero is. She's like, "What's she doing there?" So Vicky Guerrero, she's got equity, and so it's cool to see her out there. And yeah, it was like she was sort of like you could see that Sheeta was sort of scared after following the match, like scared of Nyla, which is great. She as a character, and Vicky was just being like kind of ruthless with her. So I thought it was cool, and it's a again they're starting to do the things that they should have been doing from the start with the women's division.
Yeah. And like it's doesn't make sense that like the build for this has been so narrow and short in the time span. But what they did this week was really well done. And I do like too. I don't know if it was super intentional or not, but they didn't like Vicky Guerrero didn't do a whole lot of her "excuse me" screeching stuff. It was more so like braggadocious, and then dismissive of Brandy and Red Velvet, which I thought was a really neat moment too. And
Yep.
it helped get Vicky over because she's like dismissing Cody Rhodes' wife, who's also the chief branding officer of the AEW. So I thought that was a good moment. And then the scuffle between the two. Um, you know, obviously you want more from that to build it up. But what they did, I think they established the match enough well, to have some intrigue to it for sure.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely. I thought it was, again, it's a step in the right direction for the women's division. And hopefully they keep, thought out matches, angles, and storylines there. Uh, only Ortiz and Sammy Guevara versus Wardlow and MJF. That was kind of the opener following a little altercation between MJF and Jericho, where Jericho said he doesn't show enough intensity or ruthlessness out
And
there.
he's soft. Yeah.
Yeah, he's soft, and so you could kind of see where that was going, and that was what the whole match was pointed toward. Wardlow's a star. I say this probably every time we talk about him, but the guy's awesome. Great look, great in the ring. So he's everything that I think a pro wrestler should be. So he's out there nailing it. And but yeah, you could see them trying to kind of work toward it. What else did I notice during that? Sammy Guevara, he came in with like a lot of hype as like a young Eddie Guerrero, and I think this is the first time that I saw it happen. Where I
Oh,
was
really?
yeah, where I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I see what they're talking about with him now, because he was kind of like on fire there for a while during the match. Ortiz, he's fine. He was just there. He's a good hand. And yeah, MJF, you could see them kind of building toward his thing. And then, at the end, I thought the best part was him spearing Jericho at the end, and Jericho kind of getting up smiling, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what I'm looking for in somebody in the inner circle.
Yeah. And I liked it too throughout like pretty much the rest of the night. Like Jericho was like, I'm still pissed off about MJF. Like it's
Yes.
different. Yeah.
I thought that was cool. I like that he was calling Shivani out for telling him to shut up last week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
What
good
do you
stuff.
think of Jericho on commentary overall too for the night?
Well, that was my first tweet of the night, Dom. Is that like, it's a foregone conclusion. Like it's done. Jericho is a babyface, because he's hilarious. Like he's funny on the mic, and like he's very entertaining as an announcer. The crowd sings his stuff every time, and they show people all over the place singing as he's coming out. That's not heel stuff. He's not a heel. I think the rest of the guys in his faction are heels. I think he pretends to be a heel, but like he's not one. And I think that what needs to happen is MJF beats Jericho, and as I've said, he becomes the leader of the inner circle. But then let's have Jericho go away for a little bit, like maybe like a month, maybe even 2 months. Let's have Jericho go away for a while, and then come back as a baby face and like just go on this undefeated streak. Like kind of trying to work his way back toward getting at the inner circle.
I've always fantasy booked this in my head because like I love like Lionheart Chris Jericho when he was like way back in the 90s, even before he became Crybaby Chris Jericho and stuff.
Yeah.
But like if you play to that, like where he's like a veteran line almost, or something like that, like a new
The old
identity,
lion.
the old line coming back, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. I think that would be a really cool thing to play and play with. But obviously, I think that's kind of where they're gonna go. I don't think it's gonna happen right away at Full Gear. Like, I don't think MJF. I think MJF's gonna join the inner circle, but I don't think like it's gonna be immediate heel. Like they're gonna turn on Jericho right away. I think that's gonna be probably a gradual process that we're going to see develop over a couple of weeks or a couple of months even. So not that either or I don't think would necessarily be a bad thing how they handled it. But yeah, I think that's kind of the route it's going to take from that perspective.
I kind of think Jericho's going to go over.
You think Jericho? So you think MJF's not going to be in the inner circle?
I think Jericho's going to go over, but then tell him he's in anyways.
He's still in. Interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, hey, Jericho holds the power. He could, even if that's a stipulation, he could be like, "Fuck it, you're in."
MJF, if he goes over against Jericho, then that's kind of like, okay, you beat like the leader of the faction. So I don't think he should go over and then join the inner circle, because then it's like, theoretically, like let's say that you were joining a gang and you beat the crap out of the leader of the gang, you should probably be the new leader, right? So Jericho's gonna go over, but then he's gonna say like, you know what, you showed what I'm looking for, and you're still in. That would be my guess.
Okay. All right. No, that's a pretty solid guess, I would say. Well, I think we'll close out the show with some predictions real quick, and then but one aspect you're missing was the Bucks, Kenny, Hangman, all mixing together.
I think I tried to erase all that stuff. That was the stuff that I wasn't real crazy about.
Okay. So me and you have both been on the same page about the Young Bucks and how their build has been over this course of months and stuff, leading to this feud with FTR and this match with FTR, and just not baby faces, man. And there was that text I sent you earlier today about Tony Khan having his interview on AEW Unrestricted, and you mentioned. So I sent you this quote from it. Let's see if I can pull it up. Okay, so this is Tony Khan talking about FTR against the Young Bucks, the match itself at Full Gear. This babyface team and this heel team, it's been built up and talked about for years, long before there was an AEW, long before I knew I was going to get into the wrestling business. And I'm just really proud that AEW is promoting this match and that we're having it here. So he himself says babyface team. Did not, I mean, we were questioning, okay, what's exactly going on with these guys? And we're more so, hey, they're angling themselves as, their intention is to be baby faces, but they're executing it poorly.
Exactly.
And so, yeah. So I was having hopes that it's the other way around, that, okay, they're teasing this heel. We're going to get more of an answer here. I don't know now if we're going to get more of an answer besides, hey, we feel sympathy for Matt Jackson because his ankles hurt, and FTR has been focusing on hurting that and trying to take him out of the match. Where, okay, typically that's something you would want to root for in a babyface, but those baby faces don't kick, childhood voices of your childhood in the face, or like just randomly attack people just because they're upset. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said, I think to them, they were being funny at times by kicking Alex Marvez and kicking Tony Schiavone. I think to them, they're like, well, Shawn Michaels, he kicked that guy backstage in WWE, and it was funny. His papers flew everywhere. They were like, so it's funny for us to kick, like, Tony Schiavone, poor unsuspecting Tony. Like, they think that that's, like, funny. It's not funny. Like, that was, like I said, that's some go-home heat for as far as I'm concerned. So I didn't like that. But yeah, I'm starting to realize that they were seeing themselves as being intense baby faces, whereas I think everybody else is seeing them as complete assholes.
Yeah, and well, that speaks to what that segment was last week with the interview, with Excalibur and stuff like that. And that's the pitch that Matt Jackson made, was like, hey, they effing with our like livelihood, so we're gonna act like this, and that's our reasoning to do that. We got to elevate ourselves to a new level. Well, you don't want to see that be your elevating, is by turning heels on people, like, just because you're upset.
Right. Well, if you're kicking, people backstage that are like you're super kicking Taz while he's, back there being a bully, or Jake the Snake or whoever, then fine, I guess. I don't think I'd like to see either those guys get super kicked, but the idea is like you're kicking a heel.
You're kicking somebody that deserves it.
Right. You're not kicking like a 60-year-old man in Tony Schiavone.
Yeah.
So
Wait, he's 45.
however old he is, it's just, yeah, it left a bad taste in my mouth. And it again, it solidifies that they don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. Like they're building these storylines and thinking like, hey, we don't want to make the same mistakes as like an AEW, as a WCW. We don't want to make the same stupid mistakes in storyline. But like they're doing the kind of stupid shit that we saw in WCW. So yeah, I was disappointed in that. I was disappointed in the stupid crap with Hangman Page when he was talking to JR. And I've got let me pull up my tweet, because I actually quoted what was happening on the program. Because it really stood out to me as far as how exactly they're mishandling the situation. So let me track that down. Here you go. This is JR. JR said, "You're guzzling that bourbon, and I've got a feeling it's not the first bourbon you've had today." Then a little bit later on, Paige says, "If I don't win, I don't know what I've got other than this glass of whiskey." And then I said, "Nothing like making the top babyface look like a drunken loser." And it's true. He doesn't know what he's got in his entire life except for a glass of whiskey. Like, who says that? And it's like, and all the fans are just like, yeah, like that's all he's got left. This is my guy. I'm gonna back this guy. It's like, no, dude, that guy is pathetic. Like, that's the guy that, like, you come to the bar the next morning, or you walk past the bar the next morning, he's passed out beside the dumpster. Like, like, I can't respect it. And no, they're like unintentionally burying him with this stupid drinking angle.
I don't.
Dominic, I'm not usually the one who says, like, hey, you're being insensitive, but there's a lot of people out there, a lot of kids are watching this who have alcoholic parents. And I just think all of it's in poor taste. I think the whole thing is ridiculous. It's not doing anybody any favors. They need to fucking drop it.
Well, So now I'm kind of not with you on that, because there's certain ways that, yeah, if you're doing a drinking angle, mostly doing some sort of drinking angle is bad. Um, like you look at what they do with Jeff Hardy nonstop. They do not stop this on WWE at all. They keep going back to his substance abuse issues. Like we get Jeff Hardy had substance abuse issues and has been battling them. We don't need that keep thrown in his face, in our face. It's not intriguing. This is like, okay, Adam Page was a fun drinker. Okay, he was a fun drinker, and he would come out, kick somebody's ass with a drink in his hand. Pretty badass. Um, this is kind of like, okay, he's down on the dumps, and he's still hitting the hooch here. It's a little depressing, and I'm with you too that like they kind of had to steer away from that because it was getting into that muddy water of like, this is a kind of a turnoff more than it is like intriguing and engaging. But I think it's going to be, again, with the follow through of what happens at Full Gear and how they go about it that way. Now, if they continue this whole thing of him being a depressed drunk and stuff like that, I think there's going to be an issue. But if he somehow finds redemption or anything like that against that cocky Kenny Omega, then I don't think it's necessarily an issue, and I don't think it's something that they're playing with. They're not necessarily playing with fire here. I think they're kind of handling it in an appropriate way, where it's like, okay, people drink and people get hammered and people get depressed when they're hammered. He's not. I mean, if it continues further, it'll be bad, but I don't think it will continue further. And if they don't do it, I think it's going to end up being a positive than a negative.
Well, they need to get out of it and just it's enough. And here's how, by the way. You have before the match, show him backstage. He walks into like his dressing room or whatever. There's a bottle of bourbon there. He pours himself a glass. He's raising it to his mouth. He looks down at it and he just sets it down.
And he goes out for his match.
And he goes out for his match. Exactly. And then no more with him drinking. Like he can come out with a beer every once in a while and kick somebody's ass and grab his beer again and walk back there. But that should be the end of it. And by the way, I got that angle from the movie Rio Bravo, where Dean Martin's character is like a degenerate alcoholic. The music comes on in the background, and he's about to take his drink, and with a very steady hand, he pours it back into the bottle and makes the decision that he's done, and he's just done. And so that should be how they handle this. And then he goes out and he beats Kenny Omega's ass. Like that would be the way to go. I don't think they're going to do it. I think that they think that they're working towards something, but to me, all they're working toward is burying a guy who could be their top babyface. I was truly disgusted during that segment, Dominic. I can't emphasize it enough that it's like I'm just tired of seeing it on my TV. And like I said, man, it's there's so many, like it or not, a big part of their demographic is a younger viewing audience. And like a lot of these kids deal with parents who are bad alcoholics, and here they are. They're trying to escape that life by watching something that entertains them. And then it's just like, oh, this guy that you really like too, this baby face that you really enjoy, he likes drinking way too much also, just like your dad. So it's like that kind of stuff to me is absolute bullshit, and it has no place in professional wrestling.
All right, no, you make a valid point. I can't argue with you. It's a very valid point. But I do think, from a storytelling perspective, I think it's pretty. If they kind of go that route that you're kind of talking about, I think it will be an engaging kind of payoff.
So. Exactly, and that's one way to make it up to the kids is to say like, hey, he was having his struggles just like many people do. But
look, perseveres.
He realized that there was something more important in life, and he pushed past it. So that's the right message to show these kids, and I hope that they do the right thing, because I am tired of. I'm honestly getting to the point where I DVR most of the episodes and then like play catch up after about an hour has elapsed. I'm getting to the point where when Adam Page is on my screen, I just want to fast forward it. I don't want to see him. I don't want to hear it. I think it sucks.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I mean it's a fair point though. You do make a fair point. Mm-hmm. This will lead me to this real quick, and then we'll close out with predictions. We talked about all this stuff and how, it's very muddy, like with the Bucks and stuff like that. And even with Kenny and help me out here. Who's the other one that's kind of has a real Hangman we just talked about. Cody had a conference call today with the media before Full Gear, and Connor Casey of comicbook.com asked him about how initially the plan seemed to be, okay, AEW is going to be very sports centric and have that focus. Clearly, they've done stuff that's not very sports centric, but they've done like segments that are polarizing, like Le Dinner Debonair, which I really liked. But there's also, but definitely not sports centric. And, they don't play into their ranking systems a lot of the time. Taz addressed that on the show. Different things like that, where it's kind of like, okay, we're not getting then plus the best friends feuding over video games and, Trump's mom's van, stuff like that.
Yes.
That's not sports centric. Anyways, Cody gets asked about that. So this is what he had to say, and I thought it was very pertinent to what we've been talking about week in and week out. So he says, I look back at what I said, and sometimes I chuckle a little bit because I hit things so hard before the first AEW show, because no matter what we're aiming for and no matter what we envisioned, you don't know until you know. You don't know until the lights are on and the red light is blinking and you're off and beaming across television sets to the world. When I speak of sports-centric wrestling, I speak of the wrestling that I grew up on. Jim Crockett Promotions, World Championship Wrestling, World Class Championship Wrestling. I mean, everything that was available to me in the South in that library that still currently exists. I also speak of the current MMA scene that UFC is doing. The current boxing scene in terms of unscripted promos and drama that is existing based on who the people really are and who the people at home who they think, or who the people at home who they think they are. So when it comes to sports-centric wrestling, I consider everything I do, me personally, to be sports-centric. I honor my own identity by presenting myself as such because that is who I am. You talk about Dinner Debonair. That is who Chris Jericho is. There are different flavors of ice cream that we serve at AEW, and it's very funny to me, some of the modern, I don't know if pundits is the term, the wrestling journalism that tells you it has to all be one way. That hasn't worked for anyone who's told you that it at all has to be one way, so why tell us such? It's very much different flavors. Chris represents his brand incredibly well. The meta style that the Young Bucks have is very well. The strong style approach that Kenny is bringing back into his singles repertoire, very much himself. Honestly, so many different flavors. But I can always stand by what I said then and very much still be able to say it now because what I do as a wrestler, what Cody Rhodes does when he's on screen will always be sports-centric because that's the type of wrestling I love and that's the type of stories that I personally like to tell. So I thought that was a really, really great statement. And Cody establishing himself as what he's done over the course of his matches in AEW. Arguably, I think in a lot of the times, Cody's matches are the most engaging consistently over the course of AEW Dynamite and the shows that, the pay-per-views and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What do you think about kind of that statement of having all these different flavors, but then Cody kind of establishing who he is and kind of like tipping his cap to like not only the history of wrestling, but what he appreciates from the history of wrestling that he's adapted into his own repertoire?
Well, I think, he's got something there, and it is the nature of wrestling today, where it's like, I think that the wrestling fans do demand more flavors of ice cream, but the thing is, you can walk into Baskin Robbins and they got all those different flavors. You like Luna Vachon doing her running?
Great. Yeah.
She's the superstar, the MVP of the show this week. But if you, yes, we want to see a lot of different flavors, but if I walk into Baskin Robbins and I'm like, well, they got this new flavor, it's called shit. It's called human feces. So I think I'm gonna pass on that one. So yeah, you can have all kinds of different flavors, but if you're gonna introduce some different flavors, let's make sure that they're good. Let's make sure that it's not wrestle crap. So yeah, it's I think that Le Dinner Debonair was right on the verge of wrestle crap. The more I think about it, the more it feels that to me. And that's just my opinion. You can feel however you want. So can all the other listeners. but like to me, it was like it just sort of a slap in the face of wrestling, I guess, long term. So I wasn't a fan of it. There's a little bit too much crossover between it that and like musical theater that I think kind of crosses a line, at least in my opinion.
I mean, we talked about this last week, but
Yeah.
like, all the different, flavors. Yeah, ultimately you want all those flavors to be good, but you do look over the course of wrestling, particularly since we've been fans, when it comes to like the '90s and WCW and even Attitude Era. They had a lot of different flavors if you think about it, and a lot of those flavors were shit. Like too,
Yes.
you go back and watch those old programs. Like not everything was as like fire as Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon or like the NWO. Those
Yeah.
storylines
For
and things
for
surrounding
every. I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
those stories and everything surrounding it got elevated because of like the stars like Austin and McMahon and The Rock and the NWO and Sting and DDP. Those stars that you did have, everything else around it that might have been not as good got a little bit more elevated because they were around that. So you're not gonna any wrestling show you watch is gonna have that kind of thing. I mean, it's certainly there is a program that you can watch that you can go back and they do weave a perfect or a very solid storyline, and it does as a whole product. It's not like hitting you with, hey, have this variety. It isn't a variety show, so there is that point to it that I'm with you on. But from when we became fans and things like that, not it's still kind of all in that element. Now there are plays where they break the fourth wall when it's okay like that. But does certain things do long-term damage? Maybe. But if something is, like playing like the Dinner Debonair, I don't think that does long-term damage whatsoever, like to the product. Nobody's going to, like we said, nobody's going to be like, well, that fucking ruined MJF or that ruined Chris Jericho. There's no way that I don't think that happens.
I don't think that's reasonable though, Dom, to say like, well, it didn't like ruin his career. It's like, well,
It's not. I don't
well,
think I don't even think it's a negative thing though. Like you're gonna look at it as a negative aspect. I'm not. Like I don't think so. It's just like, okay, that's a moment. Wrestling, we do know what it is. Some people like it, some people didn't. I don't think it's gonna affect Chris Jericho's legacy whatsoever, nor will it affect MJF's when in 5 years down the road he's like a world champion and an established star.
sure. I don't know, man. For me, I don't like being winked at. I wanna forget it that I'm watching TV and just like kind of dive into this world for 2 hours, and it takes you out of it. At least to me, it does. And that's just my opinion. I don't want to see that stuff anymore, but I understand that that's part of the wrestling business now, and it just is what it is. But yeah, I mean, hey, as long as they keep delivering on the flavors that I like, I'll keep watching. And let me say, there's like this week, Dom, there were a lot of flavors that I like. We're going a little bit over time,
Yeah.
I'll give my Meltzer rating here. My Marcus 10 star out of 10 star rating. This week, Dominic, it was a great show. There was not a lot that I didn't like. I already told you what I wasn't crazy about. But I think by and large it was good. So this week, Dom, I'm going 8.6. It was a very good
Nice.
episode. Very good
Nice.
episode.
Yeah, very good episode.
Mhm.
MVP, who's your MVP?
Eddie Kingston, beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Me too. That's mine
Yep.
too. Quick predictions. Who wins the championship match?
Oh man, I in my heart I want it to be Eddie Kingston, and I'm starting to actually believe a little bit. But the cynic in me just won't allow me to believe. I think Jon Moxley's going to go over.
Okay. I'll be the contrarian and say Eddie Kingston.
All right. Well, I hope you're right.
Tag team championship, FTR Young Bucks.
FTR. I think the Young
FTR.
Bucks have set it up with their injury. They've given themselves an out, so I see FTR going over.
I'm with you on that. FTR too. Cody and Darby, AEW TNT Championship.
I'm going to say Cody, and there's going to be some kind of I can see it an HBK Bret Hart type finish where they make it to the time limit draw again, and then Tony Khan comes out and says like, "Hey, well, 5 more minutes."
Interesting. Yeah. I'm going Darby.
All right.
Kenny versus Hangman.
I'm giving it to Kenny because I suspect that Moxley's going to go over and he's going to need a heel to go against, and it should be Kenny.
Okay, and I'm just going opposite, so I picked Eddie, so I'm going Hangman in this one.
I hope you're right.
Yep. Women's Championship: Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose.
I think Nyla Rose is going to take it. Sheeta's had it for a while, and they've got a lot of, again, equity in Nyla Rose, in that she's got Vicky Guerrero by her side.
Yep, I'm with you on that, Nyla Rose. Chris Jericho and MJF, you already made your prediction pretty much. So
yeah, Jericho will go over, but I think he'll let MJF in.
Okay, and the way you pitched it, you sold me on it, so I'm with you on that, Chris Jericho. Okay, this is one we didn't talk about. Gonna be cinematic. The Elite Deletion match between Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. Who you got for this one?
I'm struggling to give a shit, but probably Sammy Guevara.
Okay, all right. I'll go Matt Hardy. Orange Cassidy, John Silver.
It'll be Orange Cassidy, of course.
Yeah, Orange Cassidy. Okay, and then the opener. We did not talk about this, the bind. Now, you will be able to watch this without having to purchase anything, Marcus. Right. Did you hear about this match?
No.
Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay, the buy-in pre-show for the NWA Women's Championship.
I did hear about that. And yeah, of course, Serena's going to go over.
Yeah, I'll go Serena too. Should be a good match. And that's it. So, but hey, this is not the last you're going to see of us this week, folks. We are going to be on the post show. It's going to be the Super Show, WrestleZone wrap up / 2 Dynamite Dudes Super Show, recapping Full Gear for you. We're going to be there. Kevin Kellam's going to be there. It's going to be a real shindiggity. So
there's going to be a lack of hair follicles on this show.
Yes.
But many strong voices in today's wrestling scene.
High testosterone.
Yes, on. That's a good angle. Yeah, we're going to be with the great Kevin Kellam, and it should be fun times.
Mm-hmm. Mark, how do they follow you on Twitter? You're supposed to be doing this, but I'll take over.
Dom, you really took over the show here, you bastard. You can follow me at Marcus P as in Paul D'Angelo. And yeah, I've been tweeting more little live tweets during Dynamite, which I think I'm going to do a little bit more routinely. Give away some of my takes for the upcoming episode of 2 Dynamite Dudes.
Send out a little teasers there.
That's it. Dominic, how do they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Dominic D'Angelo. You can follow WrestleZone on Twitter at WrestleZone.com. And go to WrestleZone.com for your upcoming. I'll be covering AEW Full Gear. I'll be doing the live coverage and typing it all up for you guys right before we do this post show. So I'll be embedded right in all Elite Wrestling here for this Saturday. And yes, we talked Eddie Kingston. Tune into our Eddie Kingston interview that we just conducted. Bill Pritchard just conducted here earlier this week. And really fascinating conversation with Eddie. Why we talk about he's a star, he's pretty organic and natural, and he conveys this in his interview. So lots of stuff coming down the pipeline too. WrestleZone wrap up every Monday through Thursday. Kevin Kellam and Robert DeFelice are your typical showrunners there, and they'll have a guest on there from time to time. So tune into that. And Marcus, anything else you want to get over before we cut this out?
No, I'm just going to say, come hell or high water, I will be watching Full Gear one way or another, and so I will have fresh takes when me, yourself, and Kevin Kellam discuss it.
My goodness. Marcus will be in Full Gear, full gear.
That's it, guys. Thank you for joining us, as always, and we'll talk to you in a couple days.
Yeah, a couple days. Wow. Quick turnaround.
All right. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep.